I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe I need to get it off my chest, or maybe I'm hoping someone can explain what happened that night. Because no matter how much I try to convince myself it was all in my head. Deep down, I know it wasn't. It all started as a stupid challenge. There were 6 of us, me, Rahul, Akshay, Karan, Riya, and Priya. We were in Jaipur for a weekend trip when Akshay brought up the idea of visiting Bangarh Fort at night. People say it's the most haunted place in India, he grinned. They even put up warning signs. No one's allowed inside after sunset. That should have been enough to stop us. But we were young, reckless, and more importantly, skeptical. Karen was the worst. Ghosts don't exist, man. It's just an old ruined fort. People just make up stories to scare tourists. The locals at the tea stall near the fort weren't amused when they overheard us. One old man, sitting quietly by the roadside, gave us a look I still can't forget. "Don't go," he said, voice low and firm. "The fort is cursed. No one who stays there after dark comes back." The same. We laughed it off. Even when he told us about the strange whispers people hear, the shadows that move on their own, and the legend of the sorcerer who cursed the place, we still didn't take it seriously. We should have. The first signs, we reached the fort just as the last traces of daylight faded. The massive stone archway loomed over us, its weathered structure almost daring us to enter. The government sign was clear: no entry after sunset. Dangerous area. We climbed over the broken wall on the side. It wasn't as hard as we thought. The air inside was thick, heavy. I can't explain it, but it felt different. Like the moment we stepped in, the world outside didn't exist anymore. The ruins stretched before us, silent and empty. We moved deeper inside, making jokes to keep the fear at bay. But something was wrong. It started with the wind, or rather, the lack of it. Outside the fort, there had been a cool breeze, but inside, the air was deathly still. And yet, we could hear something. A whispering sound, just at the edge of hearing. At first, we thought it was the wind rustling through the ruins. But there was no wind. And the whispers. They were too human. We reached the main palace area. The fort was eerily quiet, except for the occasional bat flying past. Akshay, ever the fearless one, suggested we split up to explore different sections. "No," Riya said immediately. "We stay together." We all agreed. At least, at first, somewhere near the inner chambers, we heard the first set of footsteps. Not ours. We froze. The sound was distinct, light. Shuffling footsteps, like someone walking barefoot on stone. Karan turned on his flashlight and shone it around. Nothing. Just broken walls and empty corridors. Then Priya whispered, "Did you hear that?" A soft, sighing breath. Right behind us. We spun around, but there was no one there. Just darkness. At this point, I was starting to feel genuinely uneasy. The whispers hadn't stopped. If anything, they were getting louder. We reached one of the open courtyards, where the moonlight cast long shadows. That's when Riya gasped. She pointed towards one of the archways. There was a shadow. Not ours. It was standing there, still, silent. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. But then it moved, not like a person walking, but like a sudden shift, a flicker, there one moment, gone the next. No one said a word. Karan, the skeptic, was breathing hard. "We're leaving," he muttered. We turned back the way we had come. Only to find that the path looked different. I swear to God, the broken wall we had climbed over earlier, it was gone. In its place was just a long, endless stretch of ruined fort. "Where's the exit?" Akshay whispered. Panic started creeping in. We retraced our steps, but every turn took us somewhere we didn't recognize. The fort isn't that big, but somehow, we were lost. The whispers grew louder. More urgent. It felt like we were being watched. Followed, then the temperature dropped. It had been warm when we entered, but now it was freezing. My breath came out in white puffs. I heard Priya sobbing softly, and then, a woman's voice, soft, melodic. But wrong. Like it wasn't coming from a person, but from the very stones around us. I don't remember what it said. Maybe it wasn't even words, just sounds that felt like words. But the moment we heard it, we ran. I don't know how long we ran. The moment we heard that eerie, inhuman voice, instinct took over. We sprinted through the dark ruins, blindly turning corners, crashing into broken walls, scrambling over uneven stones. But no matter how fast we ran, the whispers never faded, they grew louder. Closer, then, the footsteps started, not ours, soft, shuffling. Multiple feet. Moving at an unnatural pace, as if gliding over the ground. They weren't behind us. They were all around us. Don't look back, Akshay gasped. I almost did. Almost, then I heard Priya let out a strangled scream. There. She pointed, her voice shaking. Up ahead, in the dim moonlight, we saw it. A shadow, tall, twisted, emerging from one of the archways. At first, it looked human. But then it stretched. Elongated. Arms too long, legs bending wrong, its movements jerky, unnatural, and then, it turned its head toward us. Not like a person, but like something snapping into place. I swear to God, I heard a crack as its neck twisted. That's when we ran faster. We weren't just lost anymore. We were being hunted. The ruins around us seemed to shift. Every turn led to another dead end, another unfamiliar passage. It was as if the fort itself didn't want us to leave. The shadows moved in the corners of our vision. Not one. Many. Flickering, shifting, watching, then, a woman's laughter, soft. Echoing, it didn't sound right. It wasn't coming from any direction. It was coming from everywhere. I grabbed Ria's wrist and pulled her forward. Keep running. I shouted. We turned a corner, and stopped dead. The passage ahead was blocked. But it wasn't a wall, it was her, a woman, standing in the middle of the path, draped in an old, tattered red sari. Her hair covered most of her face, but we could see enough. The grin, too wide, too sharp. She took a slow step forward. I blinked. She was closer, not walking. Just, closer. Priya screamed. Karen grabbed her and turned to run the other way, only to skid to a stop. Behind us, the shadow thing was waiting, trapped. The laughter grew louder, echoing through the ruins. A gust of freezing wind swept past us, carrying whispers, urgent, angry. Then, something grabbed my shoulder. Ice-cold fingers. I didn't think. I just reacted. I shoved Akshay forward and screamed, "Run!" The exit that shouldn't have been there. We bolted. The ruins blurred past us. The shadows moved with us, darting between pillars, vanishing behind broken walls, only to reappear ahead. The path twisted, turned, wrong, but we didn't stop, and then, suddenly, there it was, the gap in the wall. The exit, but that wasn't possible. It had been gone. We had searched for it, and yet, there it was. We didn't question it. We scrambled through, tripping, falling, pulling each other over. The moment my feet hit the ground outside the fort, the air changed. Warmth. The night was still again. We turned back, panting, shaking. The fort stood silent. Dark. As if nothing had happened, but just before we turned away, I saw something, at the broken wall. Standing just inside the ruins. A woman in red, watching, smiling, and then, she vanished. We never spoke about that night again, but one thing I know for sure, we didn't leave that fort alone, and I still hear the laughter. A week after our visit, I came across a local legend I hadn't heard before. It said that those who enter Bangarh after dark might not die. But the fort never really lets them go. I don't know if that's true, but I haven't been the same since, and I will never, never, go back.